What is up, YouTube? We are back. We are here talking college football week 3. It was a doozy. Not week 3, week 4. I lied. Week 4. Well, yeah, week 4, week 3. Depends on how you look at it. If you count week 0 as technically week 1. Week 3, week 4. We're going to call it week 4. Reacting to this past weekend's games. We had some good ones. I can't wait to get into them and start talking about them. So let's just get right into them. I'm not going to go in the same order I did last week because there's some games I'm kind of going to brush over and not spend as much time on as other ones. So for starters, we're going to start with the one of the bigger surprises. Indiana beat the absolute hell out of Illinois. I mean, it wasn't even close. I mean, I understand they were favored going into this. I still picked Illinois just because of the continuity, veteran leadership. It had been somewhat more proven for the most part than Indiana, who had a lot of question marks going into this game, especially on offense. And Indiana just went out with a purpose. They ran the ball at will. That then just opened up the pass game. I mean, Mendoza. Mendoza should be in the Heisman conversation. He balled out. I was unfamiliar with his game. I knew he'd been solid, but I was unfamiliar with his game. I'm very familiar with your game, sir. Very. I was very impressed by how they played on both sides of the ball. I mean, Illinois couldn't do a thing all night. I thought it was going to be a close game. No, 63-10. I mean, Indiana just came out and just clicking on all cylinders. All cylinders. I understand they were number 19 in the country. I would be comfortable putting them in the top 10 or right there at maybe 11. That's where they should be right now. They played like that caliber team. They played like a playoff team. Came out and played like a playoff team. Which is insane to think because last year they made the playoffs. They were solid last year. I think they're better. I truly think they're better. Rourke was good last year. Mendoza, I think, runs the system better. And everything was just clicking for him on all cylinders. It was an ugly game to watch, but it was incredible offense to see on display. Next, we're going to touch on Texas Tech, Utah. What originally was a big defensive battle for first half and half of that third quarter, but then Texas Tech just went bulldozing, 34-10 in Utah. That D line that is all a bunch of players from the transfer portal, and technically that whole front seven, the linebacker core, all from the transfer portal. First year in Texas, they put on a show, especially against this Utah offensive line that going in, head coach was saying it's the best offensive line he's ever coached. He's been at Utah for 20 years. A lot of big word, big statement to make. And then for them to just get bullied all day. All day. That was the main reason why it was close for a while, is because offensively they couldn't do nothing because of that offensive line. But that defensive line came out to play. If that's the type of performance we're going to keep getting out of that Texas Tech defense, with the offense was a little stagnant at first, started getting together towards the end, but it helps the offense click when you have a defense that's consistently getting stops and getting turnovers. And that's what happened in this. They instantly shifted momentum. And once that momentum had been swung, it was just downhill. What an incredible game. Incredible early games. Then we had, I know I talked about this game a little bit. Missouri, South Carolina. Missouri wins by 9. South Carolina is looking a little lost. I don't think Lenoris was 100% going into this game. You can kind of tell he wasn't. But they were still in this fight for a good bit, but I didn't enjoy a whole lot I saw out of South Carolina. Missouri played like how I expected. And they put out good film. I still think they're not in that next tier of SEC play, but they're starting to creep up. I like what they're building over there. But they win the games they're supposed to, and that's what they're doing right now. And you can't really complain a whole lot about that, especially this time of the year before you get into the back half of a tough schedule. Next, we got, I think I touched on it briefly as well, USC, Michigan State. I thought this was going to be a good showing out for USC, and it was for the most part offensively. Defensively looked a little questionable at times. Michigan State actually played a pretty decent game. They offensively, for the most part, were pretty consistent. Had a couple drives where I was a little ugh, but they have a younger team, so to speak, especially with that quarterback Aiden Childs. But I like what they got going on over there. I think if they can continue to build on it, I think they could still have a solid finish to this season, build into it going into next season. I like what they got going on over there. Now to get into some of the bigger games that we definitely were looking forward to. We're going to go with Michigan and Nebraska. This game, I think, showed us a lot about what we could expect from Michigan, more so to speak. I know how it is. Year 3 Matt Rule. That's normally what happens. I still think Nebraska put out solid film to start with them versus Michigan. The offense is there. I think the offense can compete with a lot of other big teams, especially in Big Ten. I think the issue now is really the defense. Secondary is a little scatterish at times. That D line definitely took a hit, losing both your starting D tackles last year, and that's what's kind of holding them back. I understand it was a 3-point game. It was only a 3-point game, really, because Nebraska scored late, with I think under a minute left. But by that point, you probably weren't getting onside, and from there you had no timeouts. That was ball game. But Michigan was in control the whole time. Ran for, I think, right around 300 yards. Might be right under it, but they just ran the ball at will between their two backs and Underwood. I think it was very big to finally use that skill set from Underwood, because right now he's not ready to be a passing quarterback. He can make plays in the passing game, but he's not ready to be full on his shoulders make pass plays work. You need to develop that with him. But to win games and to get him into a type of confidence, good mojo, be able to run him. He had a nice 40-yard run today or Saturday, and that just helped bust open the running lanes. Not only for him, for both his running backs. That Michigan offensive line looked like Michigan offensive line of old, especially with two backup guards playing for due to injuries. They still put in work. I think it was a big win for Michigan, kind of get them to ride the ship, and possibly get them back in that conversation of maybe sneaking in to be able to be a last playoff team, maybe even make a run again for a Big Ten chip. Obviously, there's a couple other things that would have to happen, so to speak, but the offense looks like it's starting to mesh together. That defense is still really good. I don't think it's as good as they were last year or especially 2 years ago, but it's still a Michigan standard defense. You're still going to be hurting after you play them. I'm not super worried about Michigan as of right now. They're still a really good ball club, and they're still putting in fight. With Nebraska, I think if you can figure out the defense, whether it be late this year or next year, and keep the offensive pieces you got, they'll be really good because they ran the ball well. Raiola looked poised at times. I think it was just the defense kept giving Michigan breaks and thus then keeping drives alive, burning clock, and then that kind of led to your offense getting a little stagnant at times throughout the day. But I was impressed by both sides, but it's a big win for Michigan. It's still a really solid film day by Raiola and Nebraska. So if I'm a Nebraska fan, I wouldn't hang my head too low, but you do have to acknowledge you have some pieces of your team to work on. Next, we got. Which one do I want to talk about next? Let's go with the Oklahoma Auburn game. So, Oklahoma Auburn, Jackson Darnold going back to his former team, Oklahoma, in Oklahoma. It was very interesting to see how this was going to all play out. And for the most part, if you like defensive games, this was the game for you because them first three quarters, it was just defensive blow after defensive blow from both sides. And then we get to the fourth quarter. Oklahoma goes up. We're like, uh-oh. Auburn turnaround answers with like maybe 4 minutes left in the game. Like, okay. Oklahoma then turns around, takes that lead back, then gets the defensive stop to win the game. This was just a classic. I don't want to say SEC battle because Oklahoma just recently joined the SEC, but that's what it felt like. A classic SEC battle came to the fourth quarter. Just who wanted it more, and that's what we got on prime television. It was great. I think Mateer is starting to make a really good argument for himself to be a Heisman candidate, and I think he should. He shoulders a lot of the workload for this offense, and so far it's been paying off both through the run game and the air attack. My only question is, how long can he do this and it continue to have sustained success? I feel like at times they got to be able to establish a separate run game, but if it's working, I would say keep rolling with it. But when you start playing these bigger SEC competitions, I mean, you still got to play a Texas. You might have to end up playing a Georgia or maybe a Tennessee and Alabama. You're not going to always be able to just do that, just run your offense strictly through the quarterback. He's got to have some help. Just take some of the workload off. If I'm Auburn, I'm not hanging my head too low. I think the defense really showed out. The offense showed flashes that they can compete with a lot of these bigger teams as well. I think they need a little more consistency from the receivers outside of Cam Coleman. Cam Coleman, phenomenal. That guy's a freak athlete at his size. Phenomenal. But Darnold played solid, did what he needed to. Probably a couple throws he'd wish he had back, especially to some open guys like Cam Coleman. A couple one-on-one throws that Darnold just kind of sailed on him. He wish he had back. I mean, you'd like to have that ball closer to your big body receiver, especially in the red zone. Could have been a turning point in the game, but both sides I thought played really well, especially on defense. Oklahoma comes out and just gets the much needed win as their schedule is only going to get tougher from here. So it's a big win for them. Next, we'll kind of glaze over this one. It's Miami, Florida. Miami wins 26-7, continuing to show that they are a top 3 team in the college football. Florida's defense did put up a nice solid fight. It wasn't just super easy for Miami to score consistently. They had to work for it. But Lagway, dude, just I don't know. I don't know if it's a lack of talent or what, but when you're barely getting 50% completion percentage and you can't run the ball, you're not going to be able to do anything on offense, especially when you have a defense like that that is really good. I'm starting to lean to the point of I think it's Billy Napier. Billy Napier's got to go. I think you need to have a better skilled offensive plan because you're trying to go to run game, it's not working, and then you're still trying to run play action with a run game that isn't working. Those do not correlate very well. And Lagway's not ready to be in a full air raid scheme, so you can't just go with that either. So I think you gotta bite the bullet, get Napier out of there, maybe find a offensive guy that knows how to truly build an offense that is sustainable for your quarterback because he's a freak athlete and can throw the ball over the yard. The accuracy is not fully there, but that would come with development. But it's hard to develop a passing game when you can't give him any easy throws to work on and then get him into a rhythm. When it's constant, hey, it's 3rd and 8, you just got to 5 wide and make a play. That's not going to go well. Saw it against LSU. We saw it against Miami. Granted, he didn't have 5 interceptions, but it just wasn't working, wasn't sustainable. But it'd be hard to get anything going against this Miami defense. That defense is phenomenal. Arguably one of the best D lines in college football. It's making their secondary play better. The linebackers making them play better. And then when you have a defense that's that good, you don't need your offense to put up 50 plus points like they had to do last year. They had to put out 50 points just to squeak by some teams. Had to come back against some teams because their defense couldn't get stops. Now you're at a point where 24 plus is good enough to win you a lot of games. And that's kind of the ship they're riding. Do I think their offense could score more? Absolutely. But if you're at a point where it's 4th quarter, you're already up 2 scores, and you have the ball, you don't necessarily have to go for points. You can be consistent enough and burn 7 minutes of clock and still end with points. That's what you're supposed to do. That is championship level football. And that's what Miami's playing right now. They are playing a type of championship style football. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily picking them to beat the champions right now, but they're showing that they can be that type of team on both sides of the ball. And that's very crucial, especially early on in the year. Especially when you still got some of your tougher games ahead, including if you get to that playoff, which I wouldn't see why they wouldn't make the playoff, but still early. But I would think they're a shoe-in to be at least an ACC championship game this year, because the next team we're talking about that was the favorite to win the ACC, they're a tire fire right now. And that would be the Clemson Tigers losing to the Syracuse Orange in Death Valley 34-21. This game was 24-7 at one point. It was 24-7 Syracuse. It looked like Clemson had no juice on either side of the ball. Couldn't stop the passing game from Angeli, who ended up getting hurt. He's going to be out the rest of the year. You hate to see it. He was playing really good, especially against Clemson. Was making plays when he needed to, both through the air and had a couple good scrambles. Clemson did not have an answer. And the offense isn't what we thought they were, especially when it comes to explosive plays. They couldn't run a ball that well against Syracuse, which is shocking because I haven't been super high on their defense, especially the run game. But they weren't doing anything against Syracuse. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe Syracuse's run defense is good, or maybe Clemson is just that bad and can get pushed around that badly. But Syracuse from the get-go punched them right in the mouth and just kept the foot on the pedal and just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. Now I understand when the backup Ricky Collins came in, things started looking a little rough. That's when Clemson was able to kind of climb their way back in. But at that point, the defense knows what you got to do. You got to throw the ball. And when you're having to throw the ball 60 plus times, turnovers are bound to happen. And they did. Klubnik did not look good. About the only productive weapon they had was Wesco. Wesco still had a decent day, but if I'm Clemson, I don't know what to do. I mean, you have Dabo kind of talking reckless at press conferences right now, talking about, well, if you want to get rid of me, you're going to regret it. Nobody has said anything about getting rid of you yet, but now you're kind of throwing that out there. Is there some chatter going on in the building? I'm sure on the internet there might be, but that's all. That's just the internet. Nothing is materialized there. But if Dabo's already worried about losing his job, things might be going south for Clemson very quickly. Now, do I think Dabo should be fired after one bad year in Clemson? Not necessarily. He has kind of built them into being a powerhouse. It's just really confusing when you bring back the same team outside of maybe one or two players from last year, and then you're just the complete opposite. Like they weren't great last year, but they were really good. And then to start playing like this, I mean, including your one win, that wasn't really that impressive. You had to come back down 16-0 against Troy and only won by 11 at home. And you got your three losses, two that were both the unranked teams. The first one, we tried to give you the benefit of the doubt because it was you were number 4 at the time. You played number 9. LSU, you lost by a touchdown. Okay, this top 10 matchup. It happens. But then you put out more tape like this. It's just not looking good at all. I think already Clemson can kiss their ACC championship hopes out the window. You're already at 2 losses in the conference. I mean, you got Florida State that's rolling. You got FSU that's rolling. You got a couple potential dark horses. I mean, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's rolling in the ACC right now. You're fighting an uphill battle. And I don't have a whole lot of faith in you. And you still got a couple tough games left on your schedule. I think right now you're trying to play to just get 7 wins. And might have to fight really hard to get that. It's just the downfall of Clemson should be studied because nobody really saw this coming. It's giving shades of Florida State last year, but it's not as bad. But it's looking like that a little bit. But got to give credit where credit's due. Syracuse did play a really good game. I do hate that Angeli got hurt because he's actually very fun to watch on offense. That man slings it. He slings it all over the yard, and he's pretty damn good at it. Had to throw in Ricky Collins. Angeli's got a torn Achilles. He's out the rest of the year. Ricky Collins looked a little rough, but when you're not expecting to play, especially in Death Valley at Clemson, you're going to be a little tense. Now you're going to have a full week of prep with the ones. Hopefully you can be a little more poised. I'm sure there'll still be a little jitters for first time start, but you're rolling the dice with him the rest of the year, so you got to see what he's got. You know? Maybe he comes out and plays decent. Maybe it looks good. But we'll have to just wait and see with that. But again, big win for Syracuse. They're 3-1. They're starting to make an argument for maybe being a sleeper ACC team. I'm still not fully convinced on the defense, but the offense, depending on what Ricky looks like, could still produce enough to be in a lot of games. They haven't really been a pushover. Even in the Tennessee game where they lost by double digits, they were still impressive. It's just the defense was kind of lackluster. But all around, impressive win for Syracuse to kind of just go in your trap, take over your trap by Clemson. Clemson, tire fire. But still, credit to Syracuse, man. It's a big win for them. Now we got one of my favorite games. I've been waiting to talk about this one. It's not the one that you're thinking though. We're gonna get it there though. UNC went to Orlando last week. Played the UCF Knights. And got embarrassed. 34-9. 34-9. Now, I will say, starting quarterback for UNC got hurt. Gio Lopez. Had to put in Mac Johnson, who did lead the only touchdown drive of the day. But even still, that North Carolina offense just looks rough. I wish I could tell you what their game plan, idea, philosophy for offense was over there. I don't know. I don't know if they truly know what they want to do. I want to say they want to try and run the ball, but then they can't really run the ball. And then they fall behind early, and then they go to the pass game, and they don't have that much talent on the outside. They got one receiver that's pretty solid, Jordan Shipp, but even still, when you go down 2-3 scores like that, There's not a whole lot of fight in this team. I just I don't know if everybody really expected Belichick to turn around for them year one. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. The question now becomes, is it just a process, or is Belichick kind of in over his head with this? Especially for a UCF team that a whole lot of people weren't really familiar with. Nobody knows if they're really that good. If you saw this, you'd be like, hey, they might be a really good team. Or they might just be really bad, and then that just means UNC is worse. I mean, just all sides of the ball for UNC looked rough. But shout out UCF getting a big win. Now, the game to close it off for today. Duke Blue Devils hosted NC State Wolfpack. 3-0 NC State Wolfpack going to Durham. Played a 1-2 Blue Devils. A team that had a lot of questions, especially on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of questions because we went into this year thinking top 15 defense in college football, potentially. They hadn't put out a whole lot of great tape saying that they could do it. Hadn't really forced turnover until last week when they played Tulane. It was the first turnover force of the year. And I thought in that first half it was going to be the same old stuff that we'd seen the first 3 weeks. Down 27. State's got the ball. They're starting to drive down the field. Sitting there. They score again. Ball game might be over. Duke gets the stop. Goes down and scores. Making it a ball game with a couple minutes left. State starts driving down the field again. Turnover for a big return. Duke scores again right before half. 1 point lead. We like that. Duke gets the ball in the second half, and after in that second half, looked like a completely different Duke football team. Offensively, was still hitting on all cylinders like they had all year. Defense showed out more. Defense ended the day with 4 total forced turnovers. Had only had 1 up to this point, and they forced 4 on the day. CJ Bailey and boys still made plays. Hollywood Smothers still had a really good day. But when you're winning turnover battles, and then you're able to capitalize on that, you're going to win those games. But I think what impressed me the most from Duke was the fact that you were down 22-7. And this hadn't been the first time you've been in this type of deficit. And, you could throw in the towel again and just call it there, especially against a big-time rival. Yet they stayed calm, stayed poised, and just put their head down and grinded away. Had a big play here, kept grinding, had another big play here. All of a sudden you got momentum and you're just attacking with it. This was the best game that Duke has played all year in all 3 phases. Had a clean day on special teams. Defense came out, was making plays, getting turnovers. Offense was able to capitalize. This was the best day, I think, for the offense in its entirety. Not just in the passing game, but in the run game. Very solid work from the run game. Anderson Castle had 3 touchdowns on the day. Put the nail in the coffin with a 66-yard rushing touchdown, which is insane for him because he's really not that fast. He's the bruiser. He reminds me of a poor man's version of Cam Scatabo. But that man loves to run the rock. And he's guaranteed 4 yards anytime he touches it. So to break off that 66-yarder to win it at home, just put a nail in the coffin. I'm not necessarily saying this is a turning point for Duke, but if this team can rally and play like this more consistently, they got a chance. Because you look at the ACC schedule that they have to play. Not a whole lot of quote-unquote tough games. You do got to play Georgia Tech. Got Syracuse this upcoming week. Got Cal, who's been surprising people. But outside of that, you got a UNC team that hasn't really showed a whole lot. You got a Stanford team that really hadn't shown a whole lot. Even Clemson in Death Valley, if you would, early on in the year, I was like, that's a tough game. We'll lose that one. Now, who says Duke can't go in Death Valley and win? Duke has a very favorable ACC schedule, and if they can play like they did in the second half against NC State, they have a very good chance to be able to go in and be able to make an ACC championship. Not saying that would be good enough to go to playoff, but you're starting to trend in the right direction. After consistently winning 8, 9 games every year, maybe have an ACC championship appearance under your belt, things are trending the right way in building a program. But that all comes down to if they can be consistent and keep this level of play up. NC State, I wouldn't really hang your heads too low. Yeah, you had a couple bad turnovers, defense kind of falling apart in the second half, but you still have a hell of an offense. I still like what CJ Bailey's been doing. You can see week to week he is still growing into a college quarterback and is still very poised and can make plays. You got a really good running back with Hollywood Smothers. You still got some really good weapons between Noah Rogers, Jolie. I still like what State's got going on. I think the big question marks really is in the offensive line play and can the defense be more consistent? Because you'll have one series they're playing out of their minds. The next is just sliced and diced. If they could be a little more consistent, they'd be a really, really good ACC team. So even though they take this tough loss on the road to Duke, I wouldn't hang your heads too low. You're still right there to be very competitive. I don't know what the rest of their schedule looks like, but nobody's saying they couldn't still be a potential 7-8 win team and have a really good year. I wouldn't hang my head too low. Yeah, there was a couple tough breaks in that game, but it happens every now and then. It was a really good game just between the two for especially a long time in-state rivalry. But NC State's little brother now. And that's where I'm going to end the show. If you like what you heard, like, subscribe, leave a comment. If you're new here, welcome to the Fumble Pod. I've been your host, Dalton Lee. And until next time, deuces.